All right. Hey, everybody, this is Jesse Krieger, and I'm excited to have Cindy Massey, forthcoming author of Evolve, a near-death experience from chaos to clarity. Cindy, welcome. How are you?
Oh, I'm excited to do this. This has been a long time coming for me to do this book and to share it with people who have had a near-death experience, but also those who want to know more information about it.
Really over half a century, hasn't it been?
Yeah, half a century. Just thinking about it, I have to go take a nap, right? I'm going to go take a nap now and rest, right? But yeah, because I didn't realize how long, because I kept putting it off. No, it's next year. I'm busy. And then it was like, I better hurry up and write this thing because I won't be here by the time I go, oh, okay, I think it's time now. Oops, not here.
Well, I'm glad that you did decide to put pen to paper. And, I just want to say at the beginning of this, it's been a joy working with you over a better part of a year, maybe even more than a year at this point, to bring Evolve into being. And in that time, some really fantastical things have happened. As we'll get into a little bit on this discussion, one of the interesting aspects of having a near-death experience, in Cindy's experience and in many other people's, as we've come to know, is the shift in how technology and internet and so forth works. So we actually started recording this interview the other day, and then just boom, complete blackout, internet gone.
And I'm over there, Jesse, where did you go?
So we're having a laugh about it, but something that I'm interested for you to speak to and share a little bit more on. But maybe before we get into that, Evolve, the book, your own experience, 50 plus years later, writing about it in retrospect, having this experience, which I'll be glad to let you speak to, so early in life at 3 years old, having a near-death experience really shaped the course of your life in some pretty meaningful ways, would you say?
I would say that because, I know that a lot of people meditate, and that is a way to open up channels to look at different dimensions, a different way of looking at life, a different perspective. But when you get pushed into a near-death experience, especially at 3 years old, you get the very quick version, a really quick version. Okay, here you go, and then it changes your whole life. It's not like you just have it and then, oh, okay, now I can go on with no, that's not how it works. And people who have had this experience have all said pretty much the same thing. It has a very impactful experience. And when I spoke with Dr. Melvin Morse, who is one of the leading researchers in this area, he was totally surprised at the amount of detail I had regarding the experience. And I said to him, it's kind of like being branded. Like when you have cattle or something and you put the brand on it for the OK Corral. It's like that. You never forget it. It's like it's absolutely burned into your memory of what happened, because it's that specific and it's that detailed. At least it was for me.
Well, I guess it brings up an interesting question to say a near-death experience. My understanding, reading your book and talking to you and other people that have had similar experiences, is it's actually the death experience. And passing through that portal of death, but still remaining, who you are consciously, just without form.
Yeah. And it is traumatic, and it's wonderful in some ways, and it's traumatic at the same time, because then you come back and you realize that what's here and what's there, isn't anywhere close to being similar or anything like that, because it's simply not the same.
And in that respect, and for everybody that's watching this, if you haven't read yet, the opening chapter in Evolve is Cindy's experience as a young girl, in fact, having a near-death experience and crossing over, which, what she was just describing in terms of you come back and it's not as good here in the book. And as I related to Cindy, it was electrifying to read a firsthand, unfiltered description of meeting source, going back to the source.
Yeah. And as at 3 years old, I can remember my mother being terribly frightened that I was going to die. She even took me to a priest. He was more scared than she was, because at that time, nobody talked about those things. I was raised Catholic. You go to church, you pray, you go home. That's what you do. But to come in with something like this, they all start running in circles. They don't know what to do with it, because it's not within their realm of experience. And people who have not had the experience, it's very difficult for them. And it doesn't matter if you're Catholic or not, or if you're religious or not, because atheists have had near-death experiences.
With
And they didn't have any...
with comparable reported experience. And
they've had that. Yeah. And they didn't know what to do with that either. It's like, what? I don't even believe in any of this, but it happened. And so, yeah, that's part of it. And so it's difficult enough for an adult, but as a child, you don't have a whole lot of anything else.
And so from that into your, mid and now even up until present time, in terms of over the span of your life, what would you say to somebody else who's had a similar experience based on as yours has played out over a lifetime, and you've done extensive research into the science side of this, and that's presented in Evolve too, but it's also a personal journey, an evolution, if you will.
Yeah. I would say that even though the people around you, family and friends, cannot be supportive, not because they don't want to, but because they just simply don't understand, that not to give up hope and not to succumb to the denial aspect. Oh, you didn't have that, dear. That was just a dream. What? Yeah, what? No. This was not just no. And it's very hard. And for as an adult, but think about it as a child.
And what you talk about as well, there's an index or a sliding scale of the intensity of a near-death experience. Would you speak to that? And just to shed light on that, some people have, as you said, like the brand, right? Like you're never going to forget that. And maybe there's also the light version.
Yeah, that's right. Because some people have, I think I saw like a tunnel thing or a noodle thing. There was some lights, there was a bumblebee, and it's in pieces, right? And I've heard this directly, not secondhand, directly from children who have had the experience. And it was interesting, this one experiencer, he was 8, and at the time I was 40, okay, when I spoke with him. But it didn't matter the age, because we had an experience that was similar, and we knew it, and it was like an understanding that we had between us. And his mother commented, Chris doesn't talk about these kinds of things. She said, and she certainly doesn't take to people he doesn't know. And yet there was some kind of energy between you that you seemed to know, both of you. You had this experience. It was a common thing to both of you. You both could relate to it, and there was like a camaraderie, or an understanding that this is what happened to both of you, regardless of the age that you are now, because it happened at about the same time, but with a several year span, because I was older than he was. But that didn't seem to matter to either of us.
Well, would you say that speaks to the concept, the title Evolve, in terms of evolving one's consciousness to recognize somebody else who's had a shared experience, even if you both didn't sit down and gush about your own personal experience?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You just know. There's a knowingness that comes away with that happens to you as a person. whether you're a person of 3 years old or a person of 43 years old. It doesn't really matter. The experience is the experience. And so that's what brings, I think, the people together. And I think it speaks to oneness, because we all hear about that. We are all one. I think that that's part of it. I really do.
And I do too. And I want to share just a little excerpt from the prologue, just to give you a taste of this in terms of the book itself. It says, an attitude shift. Physical death is permanent. However, the energy that drives the physical part never dies. I believe when we die, our energy shifts into an ever-expanding spiral of consciousness. I believe this due to my personal near-death experience, along with many other surprising events, including traveling to other dimensions. And to speak to the last part of that, after having the initial near-death experience, you've had other, as you call them, trans-dimensional crossings, as it were.
Yeah. And see, because once the portal's open, it doesn't necessarily close down and it's over. No, that's not what happens. Because you've been exposed to a whole nother dimension, a whole nother perspective that isn't physical. Because where we live on this earth, we depend on our senses, sight, smell, touch, all of that. But that isn't what you encounter there. And everything is, I remember reading Ibn Alexander's book, Dr. Alexander's book, and he said, everything is so real there. It's more real than here. And yet both of us know this is the physical of where we are in. But it's not as real as where we have been. And that's very interesting to me.
And could you say where we're going back to?
Yes, and where we're going back to, because we're all going to get there. Eventually, the path may be different, but we're all going to get there. And from what I've read of my research, we all sign like a contract of what we're going to accomplish, okay? And the how and the details may not be clear, but the bottom line is you have a contract. You have some things you have to complete here, because I believe this is kind of like a school where you come and you learn about things. You learn about experiences, about how to handle different things. And then, because I can remember people trying to convince me of how real this third dimension is. This is very real.
In the book you share, having lived and taught all over the world. I mean, right now you're in Ecuador, you lived in Saudi Arabia, and you've been
China,
So
Korea.
parallel to everything we're talking about in terms of near-death experience and this type of phenomenon, you've led a full and rich life. It's just fascinating, isn't it? And I'm just reflecting on all the time that we've known each other. I'm just happy to have the book. It's on its way to me now.
And in fact, I was having lunch with some friends and I was telling them about the book. They're Hispanic, Ecuadorians. And they go, oh yeah, we have a word for that, for what you do. Oh yeah, we have a word. Oh really? Oh yeah. And so, and it's very accepted. You know, I have to tell you, the United States spends more money on the research of near-death experiences and has the lowest level of belief of all the countries. But they spend the most money on research. And other countries that spend half, a quarter, firm belief system, but not nearly the research. It's very humorous to me. It's just humorous. It's like, you guys really do that. Oh, okay. So, yeah.
Well, it's an interesting observation that across all cultures, religions, so forth, if those are a subset of the total experience that is available and that we're all eventually become aware of after lifetime, to have that bridge built and remain an active part of your life experience, I think is the real unique part of Evolve and your story.
And it gives you a really different perspective about how you see the world. in terms of people that you encounter, situations that you encounter, what you believe is very important, and what really is important. Because a lot of what we believe is not all really that important. Because we're not going to take anything with us other than the memory of the experience of what we went through. But what I find is that some people really hold tight to that physical, you know, like, okay, it's mine, and I'm taking it with you. Oh, you are really? Oh, okay, so you're going to fit it in the box or in the, you know, wherever it is you're going to go, and you're going to take it with you right up there. Can you imagine, you know, I've thought about this. Can you imagine taking all of your stuff with you and all of your house, all of your cars, all of this?
Like get the moving van and everything.
Heaven would be, or wherever you go, it would be a trashy place. Look at all this trash that we have. People bring their
Hoarder's
stuff.
paradise.
I thought about that. I thought, yeah, that'd be a trip. And so, but that's what we are told is real. You know, if you can touch it, you can feel it, and all of this stuff, you know, that's what's important. I thought, wow. And so, yeah, it gives you a really different perspective about life and about how you want to live your life, what's important to you, and how you want to share it with others, you know, because I think that's important.
Love it. Well, that's Cindy Massey, author of Evolve, A Near-Death Experience from Chaos to Clarity, out April 9th. And wherever you're watching this, pick up a copy of Evolve. Let it electrify you and give you an evolved perspective on this game of life. Any last words, Cindy, before we wrap this up?
Enjoy it. Enjoy it because it's fun. Enjoy it.
It is a fun read and very eye-opening. Well, thanks. We'll see you in a future video. And
okay. Take care.